Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Telecast TV. I'm Mira Kwangala. You're watching a conversation with former Commissioner of INEC, Dr. Mustapha Lekki, speaking about the electronic transmission, why it will not be possible to transmit results in real time from the various wards in all the local government areas in Nigeria. Is this a strategy the APC under the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has put in place in order to manipulate results? Or are there ways that have been put in place to make sure the election will be credible, free and fair? Share your thoughts about this. Share your opinion about it. What's your opinion? Endeavor to subscribe, like, watch to the end. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. Don't miss trending videos.
Tonight, I'm being joined to unpack what the law actually says, what the Senate passed, and what it could mean for future election. Is a former INEC National Commissioner, Dr. Mustapha Lekki. Thanks so much indeed for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Sheila. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, sir. A medical practitioner who became an election expert. But tonight, you are going to be dissecting for us and trying to help us find medication for our problem, because we need to have learned from 2023. If not, then we are a nation that fails to learn from its past mistake is doomed. Of course, everybody knows that Dr. Lekki is the Galadima of Auchi Sacred Kingdom.
Correct.
Thank you so much for the honor of appearing tonight. Now, you've worked several years in INEC.
Sure.
You know the problems of INEC, which a lot of us know that logistics is one of the problems. But this issue of transmission, glitches and glitches. 2023 was a turning point, which a lot of people thought, going forward in our elections, we need to correct some things. You've heard the debate about transmission. What do you think was the biggest lesson out of 2023 elections?
I think, thank you for having me, Sheila. I think the biggest lesson, surprisingly for most people, hearing me say this, was the lack of communication and forthrightness on the part of INEC about what was going on, because things were happening. The IReV, the uploading of results into the IReV was not happening the way that it was promised to happen, was designed to happen. So people were particularly in the dark. And it was taking INEC such a long time. I think even much longer than I was expected, even not true after the election results had been declared, to actually explain to the public what happened, why that delay, and why those glitches, and what caused it, and what remedial actions were being taken. There was too much of a lag, silence.
So naturally, there's nothing wrong in having a technical problem.
No.
But you thought that there was a big communication gap. I mean, with the benefit of hindsight, what do you think the commission could have done right there? Because it's a crisis moment, and we've seen crisis happen right on election day. In 2011, if you remember, I remember just entering back into the country. I traveled for an international coverage of an event in Addis Ababa, and just coming into the country. And as soon as we landed, we understand that under Professor Atairu Jega, that elections are postponed because of technical issue. And it happened again in 2015. Yes. And we had another problem in 2019. Yes. And a similar thing happened in 2020, logistic problem. Yes. But what do you think, with the benefit of hindsight, INEC could have done better?
At that time, I think INEC should have called the principal stakeholders and addressed the matter promptly and factually. Because the facts were there, we knew what was going on. But there was no point to hide by. Just call the principal stakeholder, the political parties representative, the CSOs, the media, and even development partners who are critical stakeholders in the election process in Nigeria, and just tell them exactly what is going on. This was offensive. It was real, and there was no need to be defensive and by keeping quiet. I think that was just a disaster. It was not a good way to manage a crisis.
So from when it happened and to the point where Professor Mahmood Yakubu now came out and wanted to start announcement, and the likes of Dino Melaye now came and said, you have to stop the process because we don't believe in what has happened. You need to tell us what has happened to the IReV because it's not working. You thought that there was a lag.
There was clearly a lag, and it took too long for that to have been fixed. And
did that damage the reputation of that commission?
It was a reputational issue because INEC had overpromised at that time that this was going to be live, and that was not necessary. Even the law didn't say it should be automatic transmission of results from the polling unit. So there was no need to say that. I thought it was an overpromise that could not be delivered. And
but some of us thought it was just natural because we tested it right here on China's television. We were in Osun State. We used the IReV importer to transmit election result. Like, we made some dramatic improvement and development in our election reporting that year. When people are able, while waiting for result, they were watching on television. Like we see in America, China's television made that landmark achievement in our election reportage. We did that right here in Nigeria, where Nigerians can able to see local government by local government as results were happening. Yes. But that's why we thought that, going forward, it will be better. Osun, Ekiti, and we did it also in Ekiti. But general elections,
off-season elections are not the same as general elections. They have their own different characteristics. And also knowing that this being a general election, 2023, anything possible could have happened. And there was possibly cyber attack, which could not be ruled out, and the resilience and robustness of the staff who are managing the technology back end. All those things. And we can see even in the US, there were issues of cyber attack in their elections. Talk about Nigeria with resilience and IT backbone, which can be subject to any kind of malfunction. So the reason was just not there.
The American election is quite interesting. Don't forget, I have a fellowship in coverage of American elections. I had studied the American elections, and to a large extent, yes, there are machines that are being used, but America will still print the ballot paper off the machine to tell you that there is no trust in technology to a large extent, especially coming out of that election between Trump and Hillary Clinton, about the role of Russia in that election. Don't forget about Cambridge Analytica and the Jonathan election, and the fact that technology was used also for some level of political manipulation in Nigeria. But with that experience and background, Dr. Lekki, transmission of result has been debated right now in section 60 of the Electoral Act 2022. What do you think technically is best for our country at this time?
I actually believe that the position taken by the Senate, which is what we read, commonly, I've not had a press conference given by the Senate president or so, but what we hear is that they are leaving intact what is currently provided for in the Electoral Act 2022. They're not changing it to reflect automatic transmission of results from the polling unit. In other words, they are leaving it intact, which means the technological response of INEC by developing the IReV and the BVAS is technology that they are sort of sanctioning going forward. They're not changing that. And I think it doesn't really make sense to me that we should be talking about instantaneous transmission of result live as it is happening from the polling unit. It doesn't make sense because we don't do electronic voting anywhere. So we have to think about those things. Those things must go together. It's not electronic voting. When you are doing electronic voting, then it can be instantaneous, right? So if we're not doing that, people are still coming with paper ballot to put in the machine, to put on the ballot, and then you have to count them for everybody to see one by one and separate them according to the political party, and then at the end declare the polling unit that who won, before you now fill out the form EC8A, which is the most important document that needs to be filled and signed by all the agents representing the parties. That is the only way you can send it.
So the argument is baseless.
The argument is baseless.
We don't need a transmission, electronic transmission, real time.
Real time.
People is for transparency, Dr. Lekki.
Transparency. Are we voting electronically?
People want to be monitoring from wherever they are.
Are we doing electronic voting? If we do electronic voting, then it is instant, it's automatic. Are we doing electronic voting? We're very far away from it. I don't know if we ever really get to electronic voting. I don't want to preempt, future occurrences. Given that I was in the committee that I chair with, is it the people in charge of
ISIS?
No, not ISIS. The ISIS, the people with who control the MNOs. The major network, NCC.
NCC, yeah.
Okay, I was co-chairing a committee that looked at how to ensure that we have adequate coverage of all the polling units in Nigeria. About 120,000 or so polling units across Nigeria. And when we did the mapping, we found significant gaps in terms of, MNOs coverage. And NCC was asking INEC to foot the bill to provide the mass. I mean, INEC doesn't have the money to foot the bill to provide mass in every place where there were gaps.
So for electronic transmission, we are not ready.
We are not ready.
We are not technically ready. We don't have. But how do we? What Nigerians are looking for is that we don't want anybody to rig the elections. That's why Nigerians want to be monitoring, to be seeing it real now. Koro want to be watching it as they are doing it. Let us be seeing it at home. Because where your feet cannot reach, at least your electronic transmission.
But is that really true with the issue of cyber, cyber attack?
So you're afraid of cyber attack?
But it is real. Are you not afraid of it? Has it not happened? Does it happen in even more mature democracies, compared to Nigeria? What are we talking about?
But what is more dangerous? The cyber thieves of our election and the cyber attack that we could fight against.
You can fight against cyber attack with the kind of technology we have. There
are those who are into ethical hacking who can help you fortify your domain and your election infrastructure, and those who are political election thieves who are ready to, they are stealing destinies and disrupting lives by stealing it. Who should we be more afraid of?
I think we are just not ready. And we have to take the cue from even more mature democracies, what they are doing. If what is happening there, where they are more sophisticated, have the resources, and have people who are, what you call ethical hacking, who can support them, and these things are still happening. So you can imagine our own fledgling democracy. I'm not making a case for all, but I'm not saying that we need to be a bit more prudent and more realistic, and let us bite what we can, what we can chew. And I think what we have right now, the government, the government, the Senate, the National Assembly has provided for, is adequate. And INEC is responding in a very ingenious and very practical way. The development of IReV is fantastic. And the fact that we're using BVAS is also a very fantastic tool, instrument that are doing well. So what we need to do, I think, in terms of this transmission of results, is to rely on what is currently available and make sure it works perfectly, and it can work perfectly. Now, the point is, if you have, at the end of the polling unit, at the end of the result being declared at the polling unit, we should have a time saying the results are cut off by 3 p.m. We could, I don't know whether it's in law or by subsidiary regulation by INEC, that by 6 p.m., all results from the polling unit must be 90%, 100% on the IReV portal. So that's what we can monitor. So the extent to which they are 90, 98%, as you calibrate the time going forward, will tell you the efficiency issue. And I will continue to work on the glitches.
Legally speaking,
100%, 3 hours after the closure of polls.
Dr. Lekki, and I'm glad that you're an election expert by the virtue of your service at INEC. And for someone also who has covered election for several years and monitored elections, and I'm speaking categorically, technically now, on the nature of our elections. To be honest with you, and legally speaking, if you analyze it properly, transmission of the election result is less powerful than the physicality of election result documentation. That election result, the physical one, is still seen under the law as more superior than any form. Now, it looks to me, legally speaking, that the transmission of result is like the law wanted us to be watching television of the result being put there. And it has, that's its own purpose. And I'll give an example, sir. There was a year, and this many years back, I think this was the first election preceding the first term of Rauf Aregbesola in Osun elections. There's a popular roundabout at the Okefia. This roundabout in Osogbo had I think it was the ACN or APC at the time, I can't remember, the platform upon which Rauf Aregbesola was contesting. And they had results they were collating their own results in their own situation room.
Right.
And guess what they were doing? They were transmitting that result in a very large LED screen.
Right.
In the middle, guess what? There was no light most of the night. And people were singing, they brought DJ, people were singing and dancing at that roundabout, and people were monitoring the result. Right. For one thing, in fact, we journalists now, because there was law, they were collecting results at the local government and transporting them to Osogbo, the headquarters of the state. And that became the point where all of us stayed and started covering to see, because there was nothing to cover again because election results were being collated at the time. So people were monitoring and they were seeing how the APC then were collating their result. Right. Tell me how easy would be anybody to go and manipulate the result, because people are publicly looking at the result. If you dare change the result from what people have seen publicly, it will have caused a problem. Absolutely. And that's the kind of transparency that Nigerians wanted. Yes. That nobody under the shadow of darkness, under any disguise, will be able to go inside one room and change the result. When that caution is there, and I think that was section 60 sub 3 as being amended, is supposed to serve transparency and accountability.
But there are many ways to get to that point, you know, and I think the present system can do that. If you have, anybody can be a coalition officer, you can be one in your own house, because if the IReV portal is being uploaded with from EC8A, which is the official result sheet from a polling unit, and they are being uploaded, and you are following them, that is why it is important for a political party to have agents at a polling unit. You cannot not have agent at polling unit and you come and dispute what happened at the polling unit. That is just madness, you know, clearly. So for 120,000 polling units across the country, you must have an agent there who signs and collects a copy. And in fact, I don't know if we can say that no copy of the from AC8 should be uploaded unless it is signed by political party agents. Although if we do that, somebody can now hold you to ransom, they won't sign it and then you're not able to upload it. But the point is that if we just follow the current system and it is uploaded in good time, say after the polls have closed, within 3 hours, within several hours, I think that can be done by subsidiary, you know, regulation by INEC. Within such they can make that promise and make it work. But even if it's not 100%, we keep working on it, you know, pushing the margin until we get 100%. So if we have that going to the IReV portal, you and I can be returning officer in our own place. A diligent and a good party that has a collation center, which I think one of the parties had, and they can even project what is which is what is done even in the US. CNN will announce the results. You know, I think you can have polling agents, you know, and collect the results. And Channel can announce, you know, the result. Well, you can do without necessarily making official.
Yes.
But the thing is that you can collect it as you are collating it, because you are the portal. Because it is there, it's official, it has been authenticated and signed. You just pull it and tabulate. So you will know whether or not to go and be dancing before the softly declared.
Why is
I think a party did that, but some parties didn't have that, you know, resilience, and they didn't have that kind of provision. They go and make noise about it's rigged and because of the delay, so there'll be manipulation and so on.
Why is it difficult for INEC to be able to come forward and tell us what the glitch was? Because there's a lot of money that was spent.
Well, yeah, two issues there on the money that was spent. Yeah, I don't know why. I keep seeing, you know, we've had this discussion in the past, and I keep coming back to it, that communication was a disaster. And they should have. I don't think that, you know, they have really, I think they patched it over time, but it was delayed. And they say that justice delayed is justice denied. So the same thing, you know, in this case. They're talking about money, which is a big issue, I think. You know, I know. You know, election in Nigeria costs so much money, but mostly the money comes from the ballot papers. We don't need this kind of ballot paper that we do. And most of the ballot paper, more than half of them are shredded and burnt. So you can imagine if about 40 billion naira has been spent on ballot papers
and shredded and
burnt at a cost too. You know, something is wrong. And we have other places in the world where political parties distribute the ballot papers to people on the street. So, and the heavens did not fall.
In India,
so we can certainly do better in that area.
There was a device that was made, albeit a locally Indian-produced device, that you have to, as soon as you press on that device, the particle, it registers you, and it also gives you some level of receipt, like your POS machine.
Yes.
You know, and people thought that is cheaper to manage, and also a lot of the time we cannot even print our own ballot papers in Nigeria.
No,
we have to print them abroad. If there is any little legal issue that demands change, we are in trouble. Yes. And this has happened a few times.
Yeah, it has.
And you look at it. If there are lessons and big ones to learn from the attitude of, if you are not satisfied, go to court, to issues of glitch, IReV is not working. And the fact that people have to go into an election, fraudulently win an election, and stay in office, and hoping to use their office to manipulate the judicial process. And people say, how do you think that this election, because we are still in the process of amending it, all hope is not lost. What would you be saying to the National Assembly now to be able to ensure that they get the trust of the Nigerian people?
Well, I still say what I said when I started my opening comments. The provision with regards to the transmission of results from the polling unit, relying on Form EC8A, which is the most appropriate form to use for declaring the result at the polling units, it should remain. And I believe that it appears, I don't know what are the other amendment issues that the Senate is considering, but I appear that is the most topical issue, and I think it's overflowed. And I think that the position the Senate is to be taking by leaving it the way it is currently, is the way to go. And like I said, if we are not doing I think it's a complementarity when you are doing electronic voting as well as electronic transmission of results. If you are not there, and that is not what we are doing, and we are not anywhere near doing electronic voting, I think that issue should be rested, and we should move on to other issues in which we can make more mileage.
Thank you so much. Dr. Mustapha Lekki, a former National Commissioner of INEC. Always a pleasure having you. It's the Galadima of the Auchi Sacred Kingdom. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure having you. Before we go, that the APC has announced the reconstitution of its Central Coordination Committee for the 2026 National Convention. The reshuffled committee now have an expanded member from 73 to 90 members. The former Katsina governor and ex-speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Aminu Bello Masari, has been appointed as the chair of the committee. We also can tell you that Mr. Adams Oshomale has gone to see the president, and he said the discussion at the villa was about issues relating to the First Lady being recognized in the United States. He did not, of course, speak about the viral video of which they said now is AI, of him being seen massaging the foot of a woman in a private jet. But these are issues that have caused a lot of social media conversation. But that's how we leave it on the program tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching.